Why are we not talking about Kong? Since the trailer for Godzilla x Kong came out, people have been talking about Godzilla. But Kong, the other title character in the story, has been mostly ignored. Why is that? I thought the reason for this was pretty obvious and simple, but the more I thought on it, the more reasonings I had to add to it. Well, now this video exists. After much consideration, the answer to why Godzilla is getting more attention than Kong is twofold: history and narrative. Let's start with the former. Kong recently turned 91 years old, and Godzilla is not far behind, turning 70, the old bastards. But despite Kong being 21 years Godzilla's senior, it's the Big G who has had the richer dynasty. With the release of GXK, Godzilla will have 38 films under his belt, whereas Kong will have... Actually, if you don't know, take a guess. How many films does the 91-year-old Kong have to his name? 10. 10 films. Did you know there was an immediate sequel to the original 1933 film starring Kong's son? Did you know there was a sequel to the 70s remake where Kong survived and needed a blood transplant from a female Kong? I'm still trying to get over the fact that Kong will only have 10 films this year. Godzilla has more films than that in the Showa era alone. Numeracy doesn't indicate superiority, of course, but it does mean that there are more likely to be people who have seen a Godzilla film than a Kong film. In that regard, Godzilla is not unlike Tim Curry. Everyone will have a different first Tim Curry film. Mine was Clue. I've even been told by a 70-year-old how he still remembers his imaginings about Godzilla from when he was a child. That's how much of a long-lasting impression the King of the Monsters has, bolstered by years of continued cinematic offerings. Godzilla has been on many journeys in his career and has gone from monstrous menace to handshaking hero and everything in between. He's had 2 decades-long narratives and a plethora of singular tales exploring many, sometimes mind-boggling, subjects. Compare this to Kong, with 3 out of 5 of his big releases being the same story retold over and over again. Even the ones that aren't exact retellings, King Kong vs Godzilla and Kong Skull Island, are reboots using similar elements. To clarify, that means every other Kong film is a reboot. He's remained basically unchanged and unexplored since his first film, making Kong perfect for the Monsterverse. Kong was inducted into what would soon after be called the Monsterverse in 2017 in the film Kong Skull Island, set in the 1970s. Kong was depicted as a peacekeeper. He happily lived alongside those that didn't cause trouble, be they man or monster, and fought those that did, be they man or monster. This was similar to his previous films, but different enough, at least legally. Jump nearly 50 years in universe, or 4 years IRL, and Kong finds himself at a loss, a peacekeeper with no peace to keep, becoming frustrated with the cage he finds himself in, even though it's for his own good. A lot of people could relate to that particular mindset in 2021. I wonder if that was deliberate. Eventually he begins the hero's journey, not of his own free will, and travels to a new world with new opportunities and new purpose. Along the way he fights Godzilla a couple of times and even makes peace with the King of the Monsters, which is exactly what he wanted. With the release of the GXK trailers, we can see Kong continuing his adventures, his explorations, and even falling back on his peacekeeping duties by facing off against a warmonger. We even see him befriending a young Kong, offering our hairy boy the opportunity to be the father figure he so sorely missed in his own life. I can't say this is all well done, I have enough videos on Godzilla vs. Kong for that, but at least there is a core narrative being followed here, and a core character being upheld, one that was created and cultivated in the Monsterverse, with little to no historical baggage to weigh it down. By contrast, after King of the Monsters, Godzilla hasn't really had much of a story to follow. He's still popping up to fight things which could fall under the umbrella of balancing nature or defending his kingdom, but as an actual story, it's a non-entity. There's no narrative structure to it. And as for his character, the Godzilla we knew in 2014 and 2019 was not the same one we saw in 2021. The benevolent old god has turned practically psychopathic, and in GXK we appear to be getting more, or less, of the same, with the trailer heavily focused on Kong's journey, whilst Godzilla is little more than side dressing. This is where the problems lie. A brand new version of Godzilla started the Monsterverse off, creating a whole world of possibilities for the universe and Godzilla alike. Then along came Godzilla vs. Kong, and suddenly Godzilla is playing second fiddle to Kong, and the world has been narrowed down onto Big Hairy's big hairy ass. In the GXK trailer, Godzilla has been demoted even further to literally taxiing the new protagonist of the Monsterverse around. That's problem 1. Problem 2 informs this change. It's hard writing a story around a protagonist that can't express himself like a human being. This is not exactly true, of course, and even if it were, competent filmmakers like the ones we had before can absolutely translate Godzilla's character through his actions. But writing is hard, so why not ditch the difficult character for one who looks and acts not dissimilarly to a human being, or at least he will by the time they're done with him. This leads into problem 3. The makers of GVK and GXK wanted to make Godzilla in their own image, regardless of what had come before. They made him like the monster they remembered from their childhoods, again ignoring continuity but also everyone else's impression of the Big G. I mean, which Godzilla are they aiming for exactly? By doing this, they allowed Kong to take his place, and with no strong ties to historical impressions beyond the basics, Kong can be moulded into whatever the filmmakers want him to be. In GVK, Kong is a human-esque titan who hates being in lockdown, goes on adventures, plays with cool toys, and has human-like expressions that we the audience can easily recognise. While Godzilla reformed into whatever the filmmakers of GVK thought he should be, deforming him in the eyes of those invested in his story and so many other fans with their own ideas of the beloved lizard. This makes for a perfect storm of conflict, as everyone complains about what they are seeing in the GXK trailer or are trying to explain it away. A developing character? A ruined one? A callback? A reference? A glorious rebirth? A distasteful parody? That is why no one is talking about Kong. He's slowly turning into the well-trodden cookie-cutter hero everyone is used to. But Godzilla? He's a bloody mess. That's where GVK left us in 2021, and that's where we're going with GXK in 2024. Be thankful Kong isn't being talked about, and be prepared for when he is. Shub Niggurath, give me strength.